I think it's official. The Chicago Bulls may be one of the weirdest teams in the NBA. They're better against good teams than the bad ones. Injuries keep piling up, and sometimes they're still hovering around 500 with a absolutely brutal schedule ahead. So today we're going to be breaking down why this team does not make sense, why they may actually help them at times, and why keeping Vooch may unfortunately be what happens at the trade deadline this year. We'll talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. Y'all, I want to start off with injury updates for the Chicago Bulls. So it was announced yesterday that Coby White has actually been upgraded as far as his injury. He's now listed as questionable for tonight's matchup against the Boston Celtics, which it still keeps him in the timeline of the 1 week that they expected him to be out. So he's still well within that timeline, which is the important thing, right? You want Coby, you don't want to hear about any setbacks or anything like that. So with the reevaluation period, coming up soon based off their original timeline, it does point to something to say that, hey, the Chicago Bulls could very well, be coming around, or Coby White could be coming around and getting back on the court sooner rather than later. Listed him as questionable today, I know is already started, especially Coby White fans. They want to see Coby White get back on the court sooner rather than later. I don't know if he will be. I mean, of course, we'll see it. The fact that they upgraded him to questionable does, I guess, point to in the direction that, hey, maybe he can make his return here, tonight. But it does point that he's going to be back before the end of this week, like originally expected. And so, really good update on Coby White because the Bulls have a hell of a week this week. When you look at it, the 4 games on the docket this week: Boston, Detroit, Miami, Dallas. And I know Dallas doesn't have the best record at all either, but they're the type of team that would absolutely give the Bulls fit. So, they're a hell of a record hell of a schedule this week. So, we'll see what the Chicago Bulls can come up with, but that's with Coby. Jalen Smith is out. He does have a concussion. That was kind of already expected based off how he left the last game, but this comes at one of the worst times for the Bulls. Not only is Jalen Smith been an overall positive for the Chicago Bulls this season, which is always great to see. But on top of just that, you're also looking at Jalen being one of the better rebounders. The Bulls Zach Collins is already out, so you don't have Zach Collins out there anymore either. So the Bulls are going to be running like they have with not any bigs really now. Of course, you got Nikola Vučević, but I mean, are we counting Vooch as a big anymore? Like, I mean, just to be clear, are we counting him as a big? Nonetheless, when you look at the on-off numbers for Jalen Smith with the Chicago Bulls, so far he's played 531 minutes for the Bulls. The Bulls are plus 49 and a net rating of plus 5.9 when he's on the court. When he's off the court, they're negative 172 and a net rating of negative 7.2. There's just no doubt about it that Jalen Smith has helped the Bulls tremendously this season. And, he's been exactly what you want from a role playing big. He's been able to play the 4. He's been able to play the 5. And we've kind of just seen like more of what the possibility of Jalen is this season. So it's unfortunate that he's going to, miss some time in concussion protocol. You probably can expect him to miss at least half the games this week. We'll see what happens. There's basically a day in between every game. The only time we have a back-to-back is Wednesday and Thursday. That's the Detroit and Miami. So he's definitely not going to play in one of those games. He's already not playing today against Boston. So even if he does return, you're looking at maybe Thursday against Miami, but it could very well be not till Saturday against Dallas, depending on the severity of the concussion. And so that's there. Josh Giddey, no update on him. He still remains out with his 2-week timeline. We're about a week into that, almost halfway through his timeline for him to return. And then Zach Collins should be nearing a return as well, as he had a 10-day return timeline, and Coby White had a week. So if Coby's returning, Zach Collins should be there shortly after that, so we at least can get him back. And so that's where it stands right now with injuries. It's been the story of the Bull season literally since the start of it, with us missing Coby White at the beginning of the season. So no big surprises there about injuries continue to be a thing for the Bulls. But that leads me to the thing that I want to talk about, right? the Bulls, we all know, have been a very weird, a very inconsistent team as well. And that has not changed. The Bulls have been that forever. Whether you look at it and want to say it's playing up or down to competition, or however you personally want to word it and take it, the Bulls are like, when you look at it, right? The Bulls are 9-8 against teams with 500 or better records. So teams that are at least at 500 or they have a winning record, the Bulls are 9-8 against those teams. Against teams that are below 500, the Bulls are 8-10, right? And like that goes back to what we talked about, during the season, where the Bulls had what was supposed to be one of the easiest stretches in the league, and definitely the easiest stretch of their season, right? That they lost so many games against teams below 500 because that's where you're supposed to start stacking your wins. The thing that makes it even more confusing is that this team just continues to play pretty damn good against teams that are above 500. They, of course, one more win than loss there, but it's still there. But when you factor in the fact that the Bulls have the fourth toughest schedule remaining in the NBA, with their 47 games that they have remaining, the fourth toughest schedule in the NBA. And does that mean that it could be better for the Bulls because they play up to competition? Does that mean that it's going to be more of a struggle because this team is just so inconsistent? The Bulls right now are the only team in the league that has a better record against winning teams than losing. That's it. That's the Chicago Bulls. Your Chicago Bulls, ladies and gentlemen, that's them. They're the weirdest team in the league, both on the court and off the court. And that just goes to a lot of the frustration that some Bulls fans feel about this team right now, is that they're just it's so confusing because you don't know what you're going to get every single day, right? And during that 3-13 stretch that the Bulls went on, the level of effort was so inconsistent day in and day out, right? So when you look at this as well, right? The Chicago Bulls they're just a team that's just really, really strange overall. Like when you look at some of the teams that they've beat versus some of the teams that they've lost against, it's just weird, right? I want to say on top of this, right? The question that this then reminds you of is like, what is the Bulls' goal for this year? Like really, what is the real goal this year? Is it to continue just the evaluation? Is that just what it is? It's like, we're just going to go out there and play because we're in full evaluation mode, and we'll make all of our decisions at the trade deadline and then in the offseason on really shaping the future of this team. Is that really where they are? And it could be. We've seen teams do that before, where up until January is basically evaluation. I mean, AK's done that before. He basically did that when he first took over the team. He came in, and it was nothing but an evaluation period to start, and then he made his moves, made the move for Nikola Vučević, traded a lot of the young pieces, and that's where it is. But right now, the Bulls are a team that really not only feels like they lack a plan, but also they lack a vision. Because what are we doing? Are we aiming for a spot in the postseason? Or are we just hoping for the play-in again, right? What players are going to be here long-term, the evaluation of long-term fit. These are things that we've heard from AK over the course of the year, basically since, media day, and we still don't have any answer on that, right? Nothing has a clear, every question you can come up with for the Chicago Bulls, it doesn't have a clear answer. How good are they? It doesn't have a clear answer because it's so wildly different depending on, of course, health, which that matters for every team, but no team is ever healthy for real after November. You always have some type of things going on, but okay, health has been a factor in that, right? But you don't know really how good this team is. You know for a fact that you're definitely not a contender for a championship by any case of the imagination at all. So you're not a contender. You're not really you're not really trying to go out there and get a star right now either. I'm not saying that if a star became available and somehow the Bulls had the assets to get it, they wouldn't go out there and get it done. But like you're in this thing of development, but then like look at the pieces that you had on this team that have gotten passed up, like Dalen, Julian. These were supposed to be development pieces. They aren't there. No Essengate, injured. You have now a time period where Jalen Smith and Zach Collins is out. We haven't heard anything about a plan for Lachlan Albrick at all. Like, we haven't heard anything about that. Like, we don't know what the plan is for Lachlan. Lachlan, who actually was putting up some pretty damn good numbers in the G League, he's been suited up, at least in the last game for the Bulls, didn't play. Now, I know there was some talk about him dealing with some type of injury, which could very well be a thing. But, he's not listed on the injury report anywhere. So where's that getting, right? So you don't have questions on how good you are. You were hoping for that. The start of the season gave you a little bit of hope for that. You went on another 5-game winning streak, but then shit happens, right? You lost 2, you won 1. It is what it is, right? So now it's like, what are the Bulls? What are your goals? What is your aim? What are you doing? What are you trying to build with this team? What is the identity of how you want to play? You are still missing so many major pieces that good teams have to have. You are missing so much of that, right? You don't have the rim protector that you've been missing for a while. You want to be this three-point shooting team that you settle for bad three-pointers. We're not a great three-point shooting team. As a matter of fact, somebody like Kevin Huerter has been, and Coby, they've both been damn near terrible from three this season. So you don't even have that to evaluate, right? And then you have these pieces, Ayo Dosunmu, Coby White. We have no real indication of what the Bulls plan on doing there. We have no real indication of the Bulls plan on paying them. We just don't know. And then when you factor all this in and trying to figure all this out, having no answers to the main questions on your roster, and still you're coming into now the fourth toughest schedule remaining in the NBA. The fact that the Bulls have beat good teams, maybe that gives you some confidence there. If it is, great. But if you can't beat the bad teams and you beat the good teams, where does that leave you feeling? And that's the thing that even me sitting here and watching every single Chicago Bulls game, streaming most of them, I don't know how to feel, right? The Bulls remaining strength of schedule, the opponents have a 500 record, a 51% winning record, really, right? The only teams that have a harder schedule than the Chicago Bulls are the OKC Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, and the Phoenix Suns. That's it. All those teams are in the Western Conference, so it makes sense that they are going to have a tougher schedule than the Eastern Conference team. It's tough. The only other Eastern Conference team that has a top 10, hardest remaining schedule is the Milwaukee Bucks. That's it. It's the Bucks. And so the Bucks do have, you say what you will about their record, right? They're 5-13 against teams above 500. So say what you will about their record, but at least they have Giannis. They have an actual star and a generational talent on their team, right? So it's just mad questions about where we are right now. And I tell you what, between now and March and all the type of stuff that's in between, the Bulls are going to have to make some tough decisions. And as I keep saying, and I've said for years when it comes to AK, I don't know if I trust him to make the tough decisions. And one of those tough decisions is being Nikola Vučević, right? Which gets us to our next topic. I know that me saying this is going to piss off a lot of people, and it should. But I'm not here to make anybody happy. I'm here to tell y'all the real. I think everybody needs to be prepared that Nikola Vučević is going to be here after the trade deadline. I just think that everybody needs to be prepared for that. I don't think there's really any question about it right now. Nobody is trading for Nikola Vučević unless the Bulls are giving up assets. So all these comments that you see from people on my channel and others of fans saying things like, let's move Nikola Vučević and get our center of the future. If you think you're moving Vooch to get a center of the future, you're smoking some major stuff right now that we may all need to be that delusional and live in that area of delusion. But it's not happening. I'm here to tell y'all, it's not coming. It's not happening. I would love to be wrong about this, and I would love to do nothing more than to come back and have to drop a breaking news video to say that the Bulls have finally rid themselves of Nikola Vučević. But I think when you look at Vooch's performance, both the analytics, right, which is one thing, how the analytics look, and the picture that they paint about a player, right? And Vooch is one of those players that the analytics hate now. Like, they used to actually be in his favor about 2 or 3 years ago. Now we sit in this place where Vooch is a net negative for this team. The Bulls are negative 88 when he's on the court, a net rating of negative 4.1. It just is. The true shooting percentage goes down considerably when Nikola Vučević is on the court. Rebounding percentage actually goes up, even though he's not rebounding well this season. But Vooch this season is just 16.5 points per game. He is shooting the ball 50% from the field, 38% from three over that, and averaging 8.9 rebounds. But there's just no doubt that despite what the numbers tell you, it's just not there. And at being 35 years old and an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, even if, and I'm telling y'all this now, even if a team looks at Vooch and says, he can be a backup big for us, there makes no sense to give up any assets when he's becoming a free agent, and you can clearly see the Chicago Bulls probably aren't going to re-sign this dude, right? And so that's the conundrum that the Bulls sit themselves in. Now, unlike other situations where I've talked about AK sitting on his hands too long, Vooch had a great season last year. He was the Bulls' most consistent player when you look at the entirety of the year. He had a 2-week drop-off, and that's literally it on the season for Vooch. Vooch was really good, and the Bulls tried to move him at the trade deadline. They could find nothing for him. And I think that is teams looking at it and saying, well, he's getting older. You can already start seeing maybe some signs of a decline coming. And let's just wait to see how it's going to go. We can sign him as an unrestricted free agent in another year. And I think that's what you saw teams doing. And now when it just comes down to Vooch, who's now been with the Bulls for 6 years, I think you just have to realize, like, it's done. Like, Vooch could be in all the trade rumors in the world. And this is why I always try to separate trade rumors from reality for you guys. Vooch is probably not going a goddamn place. And now I'm not saying that like it's a pride thing. I'm not saying that like, oh, it's good. Vooch is staying. No. But I think you can tell Vooch wants to leave. I think that you can tell that this relationship has just run its course. And that's just is what it is. I think when you look back at a lot of things for Vooch, we heard that over the Bulls and they had that little mini break that Billy Donovan talked to Vooch and Vooch was locked in and engaged and Vooch just said he just wants to figure it out and he doesn't want this team to lose. I don't think any competitor wants their team to lose. But I think when you look at the body language, I think when you look at like even the interaction with Modest and Jalen Smith after that one win, like I think that you're just seeing a player that just is like, damn, I've done a lot of losing in my career. I've done a lot of that. I haven't really accomplished much. I really want to be in a winning situation, and Chicago just ain't that for me. Now, he's part of the reason why it isn't a winning situation, but veterans, it's easy to look at what they've done over their career and them saying, hey, at this point, listen, I'd be willing to go be Jokic's backup and help deliver for them. Now, there are some teams that do need centers. Boston's one of them, but I think they'd be going more defensive-minded center. They're one of them. Of course, the Golden State Warriors are always rumored to want a big. We heard that the Kuminga for Vooch rumors, all that type of stuff. But I am telling y'all right now, and because I don't want nobody to be surprised, I want nobody to be up in arms, Vooch is likely a Chicago Bull at the end of after the trade deadline. And that's why my thought process has been start Zach Collins and Jalen Smith. Start those guys as your 4 and your 5. Let Vooch come off the bench and be somebody that maybe can score a little bit for you. And I think at that point you're closer to the style that you want to play with Jalen and Zach Collins in the starting lineup. You can move Modest to the 3. I know that takes away the defense of Isaac Okoro, so maybe they're not going to be willing to do that. But I'm just at the point where I think that is the best maneuver for the Chicago Bulls team. And because I think Vooch is going to be in a Bulls uniform after the trade deadline, I just think that the Bulls are going to have to do some other things to get the better out of their center play and out of their center rotation. And I think that's probably it. Starting Zach Collins and Jalen Smith together, who have been really, really freaking good when they're on the court together for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that's just the thing that, like I said, me personally, that I would be looking at if I'm coaching. The analytics kind of prove it. It works out there. I think stylistically, they both can get out in transition. Jalen can stretch the floor a little bit more. I think the defense gets better. In 71 minutes played with Zach Collins and Jalen Smith, the Bulls are plus 19, a plus 14 net rating. The offensive rating is 118.8. We're about a 120 on the season, so it's not too far down, but the defensive rating becomes a 104 when those guys are on the court, and we are 6-2 in games where we play that lineup together. That's a lineup that I would want to explore here at the end of the season. We just got to see what Bulls are going to do with it. Or I guess you can also do it to play devil's advocate. You can also do it to where maybe Vooch starts, but maybe you make Vooch the Keith Bogans. Maybe he starts every game, but maybe he doesn't play the most minutes. Maybe he checks out at the 5-minute mark, the 8-minute mark of the first quarter and doesn't check back in until maybe towards the end of the fourth and in the second half. Maybe something like that. But let me know what you guys think on that for the Chicago Bulls. Let me know what you guys think down below. With that said, I want to get into the last topic for today. The Bulls do take on the Boston Celtics today, and this is going to be a tough game for the Bulls. This is the start of a 2-game road trip for the Bulls. They're on the road against the Celtics and the Detroit Pistons over the next 2 games. The Celtics come into this 22-12, the third best record in the Eastern Conference, which not a lot of people expected them to have this. When you look at the way that their season has gone versus the Pacers, there were some people that, like my co-host Matt Moore over on Locked On NBA, he thought the Pacers would have a better record than the Celtics. I always thought the Celtics, because they kept the majority of their core there with the guys that they have there and Jaylen Brown and, Derek White and those other guys, that I still thought they were going to be a pretty damn good team, and they've proven that. They are the second best offensive team in the league and the 15th best defensive team in the league as well. They also 6th best rebounding rate, 8th best block percentage. When you consider their big rotation, it makes you even more surprised. So the keys for the Bulls in this game are they're going to have to battle on the boards. You're going to have team rebounding. You are down 2 bigs. Nikola Vučević is your only big on the roster unless you're going to play Lachlan Albrecht. But that's it. It's just that, right? And so rebounding is going to have to be done as a team, and it needs to get done because this is a team in the Boston Celtics that will absolutely kill you on the boards, and especially offensively. They're the 6th best offensive rebounding team in the league, and only 24th defensive rebounding wise. So you have to, and keep in mind, they're 6th best overall. That just shows you how important and how many, they gobble up almost 30% of all offensive rebounds. The Bulls are going to have to battle on the boards. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. You cannot afford not everybody to not give total effort on the boards in this game. And the connectivity overall has to be there for the Bulls on both sides, especially defensively. This offense is so good. You have to communicate defensively. You have to fight through screens. You have to stay connected. If you do not do that, you will lose this game by a large margin if you do not do that. So you have to do that if you're this Bulls team, and you have to move without the ball. Stop standing around and watching on offense. Every time the Bulls give up a lead or get out to a huge deficit, it's because they've been ball watching. They stop moving, and every time we come back, it's when we move consistently off the ball. That's what the Bulls have to do today. Move consistently off the ball. Keep that movement going because that manipulates the defense, and because you don't have players that can create their own shots, that gets them easier looks. That's what has to be the Bulls' focus today. If it is, the Bulls can get a win against Boston, but it's going to have to take total effort, total execution, total fight, and we don't always see that from this Bulls team. So we'll see what they can do against Boston tonight. But that's going to do it for today's episode. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell if you always want to be notified when we go live, which we always do. We'll be live for the game today. You guys can follow us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. That's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.